something exciting that stems off the hype of X-Men 97 in what we would do in a Spider-Man 98 show. Spoilers if you haven't seen what episode came out today?
7?
9? 8
9.
today. So if you haven't seen X-Men 97 episode 8, stop watching the video right now. They brought back the animated Spider-Man was in a little cameo at the end of the episode. And that got the whole internet going ablaze on wanting Spider-Man 98 or just that show being revived again, like how X-Men 97 revived the X-Men animated series. And I'm all for it, even though the animated series had a pretty conclusive ending, unlike the animated X-Men animated series. But there's still a lot of story that can be told with that character.
Now, let's just get this out here. They could probably just be like unhinged in the story that they tell because Spider-Man would be animated from this perspective. So the leash should be super long. But I think the main thing that you do is you get those core characters back. You get Kingpin back. You get the Goblins back. You get Venom back. You get Carnage back. Like all of those cool things that they did in 98. You just continue those stories with characters that are still alive and existing. Or, you know, maybe if you have to bring a couple people back, so be it. But I think this is where you tell like a really, really cool. You highlight the spiders again. And I think you go back to life without a Mary Jane and explore that way. Not to say that Spider-Man 4 and Tom Holland's won't, but I think you have the ability to tell more of Peter Parker's story beyond what they've shown us in Across the Spider-Verse and what we've gotten from Tom Holland and Andrew and Toby. There's tons of untapped potential here for this. And then you get your crossover cameos. So bring on the Black Cats and all that kind of stuff. Sorry, Sydney Sweeney. Like, animate these stories and expand on who Peter Parker is while giving us some solid Spider-Man action.
Do you think it would change up, I guess, the portrayal of the ending of that show if they were to bring it back?
I am of the world to where you can kind of forget that the ending kind of happened in a way. Like very similar to how X-Men 97, like you can pick up of like what a world would look like, but in a way that kind of like reverse and kind of reset some things in a way and carried on stories. But I don't know. I almost think when you kind of reintroduce these, I think the expectation is the ending of how they ended and wrapped up is loose and almost forgotten in a way.
I feel like if they bring it back, I would like for them to stay away from the Spider-Verse stuff.
Sure.
I know it could be very tempting to do it just because, you know, it's popular and it's kind of easy to bring into it, but I wouldn't want it for two reasons. One, and first off, because of obviously, you know, Into and Across the Spider-Verse. I feel like they should just stay away from it. But also, they already did their own Spider-Verse thing. So, maybe, you know, there's not really a need for it again. If they do a storyline, I would really like for them to incorporate. Now, I know this can go into Spider-Verse territory. Again, I don't think Spider-Verse will do this or beyond. But you could bring in Moreland.
Mm-hmm.
Mainly because, and this is the only quote-unquote problem I see, is that they've done a lot of their major Spidey stories.
Yeah.
Not that there isn't ones that they can pull from. Absolutely, they can pull from anywhere and kind of redo it if they really want to. But if it's just like a strict continuation, they've done a lot. By the time this ended, Moreland wasn't really a thing. He wasn't a character. So introducing a singular new big bad to Spider-Man that is antagonizing him the entire season would be really cool to see. And I think we can kind of all agree that Spider-Man is kind of that like ultimate underdog in a way, even though he's not. He's super powerful, but he's always also really good as like the ultimate underdog.
The comeback kid.
Yeah. And having him fight from beneath Moreland the entire season, like constantly running away and trying to catch up and trying to figure out how to beat this guy. That's a really cool way to, reintroduce Spider-Man, give you a lot of cool action scenes, bring in certain Spider characters if you really want to. Like you could throw in a Spider-Woman in there if you want to just have like a crossover, or, whoever else you want to bring in. But I just feel like that's a good way to incorporate a storyline that I don't think we'll see anywhere else. If that,
This answer this real quick, you guys, if you know this, and I didn't search this, but off the top of my head, I can't think of it. Has they ever adapted the Superior Spider-Man story in an animated fashion yet?
I think the Ultimate series did for a little bit, if I'm remembering correctly.
I can't remember how far they went with it, because I do think Moreland would be cool. In my head, though, I just feel like if you bring him in, you're establishing this animated Spider-Man as the best and like the A tier Spider-Man as the one who's defeating him, right? Spider-Man, I'd love to talk more about this, but someone didn't keep reading, so we can only say so much.
Has had a full omnibus for over a year at this point. Hasn't finished it.
It's quite unfortunate, but one day it'll get done.
And you know what?
I know the storyline to it because we did those past preps for Spider-Verse, but
I'm just like giving you a hard time about it. It's gold.
and adding, to your point, Lou, at this point, if they're going to do any of these storylines, it kind of feels like they have to combine a couple. And again, correct me if I'm wrong. I know they did a clone-like story, but they didn't really do a Clone Saga story.
No.
Like a full proper one. So I think what you could do is you have the Clone Saga be your first one, and you have Doc Ock be the one behind it. Yep. And at the end of it, you have him steal Peter's body. I think that would be the best way possible to end season like 1 of a Spider-Man 98. Spider-Man's body is not his anymore. And then you do a Superior Spider-Man for 1 or 2 seasons, and maybe you have Moreland be the reason that Peter gets his body back.
Right.
Because I think, again, you're going to have to combine a couple and, mix the stories a little bit and to make it into something new.
But it's even big enough that if they did do that, they could still handle the crossovers. You could still get your animated crossovers. You can still pull in characters and tie them in nicely. The tough part about, I think it goes back to what you're saying, is the original Spider-Man 90 series told a lot of story and covered a lot of ground in a way to where it was cool at the time, but like even from a symbiote perspective, in my mind, if you do a Spider-Man series, I think that you have a lot more crossovers with Spider-Man, depending on what version of Spider-Man he is. And I think that's almost kind of like what we're missing right now with the Tom Holland Spider-Man. If he does get the symbiote, like how many times have we seen either a symbiote Spider-Man or a Venom who've just been self-contained? There's so much story to tell to where they cross over with so many different types of characters that we just have never really explored that. So even if they did, and he goes back and they tell the symbiote story over again, yeah, you can touch on like a Secret Wars version of it or something, but I don't know. I just think that they could go a lot deeper into these and tell more of the lore, given a clone Spider-Man, a symbiote Spider-Man, a Mary Jane Peter, a Felicia Peter, you know, those types of things. They could build that out a little bit better, and maybe this is even a little bit more of a mature Spider-Man than maybe we've gotten in the past.
He would be pretty older by the end of his run. I
Yeah.
would like to see one thing that I think would be pretty cool. Back when the series came out, there's a certain Spider-Man that wasn't even materialized yet. I would like to see Miles Morales in there. I think that would be a cool way to segue from like Peter and like the 94 Spider-Man that we know getting older and kind of put him down the path of like a season training Miles, kind of like what the Spider-Man PS4 games do, ultimately leading to the Peter Parker that we know and love's death, and introducing like a Miles centered Spider-Man storyline and getting symbiotes through Miles, essentially, which has been done many times in the comics, but with all fresh takes and like with the history that the animated series has, I think they could do a nice, really cool spin on it. And like you guys both said, seeing the mature Peter would be cool. Maybe give him like a April Parker, like some form of child as well. Just to hurt the damage even more when he does pass, and then maybe have it be like Miles, and Miles has to train Peter's child.
Yeah.
Should be pretty cool.
It would be cool. And I like, obviously we think here Miles is one of the best characters. I just think it's one of those, it's already been done a couple times already now. And that,
Yeah.
not that they can't do it again. I feel like they could, and they can make their own fresh take. But I mean, even kind of the Ultimate Spider-Man series veers into that that storyline.
Mm-hmm.
And again, we've had it there. We've had it in Into the Spider-Verse. We've had it in Spider-Man in 3 games. So it's kind of like, again, we've already seen that. So I don't know if a lot of people will want to see it again. And also, if they end up doing it in the MCU, at that point, you kind of cheapen Miles for a lot of people, because they just keep telling the same story. You know what I mean?
Mm.
Instead of doing something different with him. So it's a weird spot with Miles, though, because I think he could add a lot of value to a series like Spider-Man 98. But how do you introduce him in a way that doesn't feel like just another origin story where we have to see him again be bitten by a spider and again fight Uncle Aaron as the Prowler and again, go through all these things and learn to be Spider-Man? Because we've seen someone learn to be Spider-Man with Peter how many times now? And we've seen it with Miles, especially people who play the games.
Yeah.
At least 3 with Miles. So it's just like too much, I think.
Let me ask you guys this real quick in response to that. I thought it was interesting during the X-Men 97 episodes where they showed like Silver Samurai, you got Spider-Man, like they did a couple other character cameos. Would you want this to be as long as an X-Men 97 season has been, or do you want it to be a limited series or a limited season run to where they give you, 4 to 5 episodes and they just tell a portion of a story of a continuation of that character from the 90s that fits into where 97 is today?
So at 8, I think 8 would suffice.
Because that's the factor we have to take into consideration here is we see the character in the world as is today. Their story has to pick up in some fashion around this time. I mean, they can go the prequel route and kind of end their season, where he leaves off. But for the most part, you think that this is the beginning of a connected animated universe. So story-wise, it's got to be, the global effects, you see crop up in whatever.
It'll be interesting because I think at this point, this is one of those things that's, while we're not saying it's confirmed, there's too much talk of it happening for someone at Marvel and Disney to not realize that this is a very lucrative opportunity for them. And if they do it right, it could be one of, just like X-Men 97 is honestly one of the best things to come out of Marvel. It'd just be interesting to see really what their focus wants to be on it. Because even though we're getting all these really cool cameos from like X-Men and everything, it's still a self-contained story for what it's, for what it's doing. Just obviously with the fun extras. And I think that's, if we're going to get at Spider-Man 98, I think that's the best route to go as well.
Yeah.
Oh, I just thought of something. What if you saw him go through, like, I guess he'd be a little older in there. Like, potential, like, future Foundation. Did they do that in the animated series already?
No.
Not off the top of my head.
Future Foundation would be cool.
But that's the thing is, like, who do you establish? Do you pull in the Fantastic Four and recreate that series?
Yeah.
Do you, like, how deep do you go and how far out do you build those expectations for fans to expect different versions of them? Like, it's a fine line. And although I think people, obviously, we're talking about it, are super excited about the prospect of this show, it's kind of in a tough spot because, again, we still have that Spider-Man animated Disney Plus show that's coming out.
Yeah.
Right. There's a lot of animated things that are happening for Spider-Man in general. And how much is too much type of thing? How many stories are you going to try and tell?
Are we getting into the Bob Iger comment territories with Spider-Man now?
No, I think this would be this, no pun intended, the superior Spider-Man story and version to pick up and run with. I can't see them putting the backing into this that they should when they have an original series that's coming out.
Yeah.
Like,
when they want, especially for it to be its own thing where it's kind of writing both multiversal and ground level. Yeah, that's the issue seeing with this. But I think if they were to go the route, kind of like you said, even though the pun wasn't intended, Superior Spider-Man feels like that's the best available route, because you could then open up the series to a lot of different things and a lot of original ideas while still adapting a lot of different things. Like, you could bring in Anti-Venom, Agent Venom, all those things with a Superior Spider-Man storyline. I don't think you could bring those in as smooth in a actual Peter Parker led story.
We gotta love all the Spider-Man talk. Anytime we get to talk about Spider-Man in any capacity is a good day.